Voila.
Wow. Just like that.
2 in a row.
Load management day 2 continues as
Freaking load management.
Dan Higgins down managing with Frank Frangie right
We
now.
got into it's always a debate. The one thing that Dan and I, a lot of times we'll go off and we can come back to some point. We just cannot get on the same page when it comes to this college football playoff. I just don't know what you sports fans want, man. You just want to complain about everything. When it was the poll, it was too subjective. At least let's identify the top 2 teams and let them play. Well, then it didn't take long to figure out, well, what about the 3rd team? Well, hold on. I thought we were about number 1, not number 3. Well, then, okay, well, that's not representative enough. Let's take 4 teams. And now 4 is not enough. It's always about, well, this team 5th, or this team is 8th, or this team's undefeated. And I don't understand this about college football. Why do we take that undefeated as the be-all, end-all?
Right. Why can't this group of 5 team that's undefeated get a shot?
Right, because they don't deserve one, because they're not as good. Why is that when... I'm not an elitist. I like competition. I like the best competition. I don't want... I mean, Minnesota's a great story. I just, you don't have to take a team and then build them up even bigger than they are.
Right. I'm bad with the divisions. Is Minnesota, would they play Ohio State in the title game? So, okay, then go beat Ohio State, and you're in. Easy peasy.
Listen, Minnesota first has to beat Wisconsin this week, and then they have to beat Iowa, and then they have to beat Ohio State.
Right, so if they do that...
But this notion of, though, everyone, like, ganging up against Alabama. Well, they got a loss. You need one no-loss team. Yeah, they got 1 loss by 5 points to the number 1 team in the country with their own quarterback on an ankle injury. I'm not an apologist for Alabama. I don't want Alabama to win it all. I think that Alabama, just the same argument I had last week, this notion that Clemson is not in the top 4, it's just, you're going out of your way to be fairly unfair.
Right. It seems
I
thought the initial poll, both Clemson being out of the top 5 and Ohio State being 1, although to a lesser degree, both seemed like unnecessarily contrarian.
If you want to put Minnesota and Baylor, because they're still undefeated and they're playing in a big conference in the top 4 this week, knock yourself out. I don't care. At some point, you have to ask yourself, and you're not always right. I mean, if you would have asked me last Thursday in a college basketball BCS, who wins Florida State, I would have told you, well, that's a ridiculous question, Florida wins. So it doesn't always work that way. But as part of the parameters, in addition to your analytics and your schedule strength and your FPI, how about just the old question? Okay, you are a fan of the Ohio State.
Boy, am I.
Would you rather play Baylor or Alabama?
Right. That's a no-brainer.
I mean, that's a fair question to ask. What would you least like to face? Doesn't that tell you who's the most challenging?
Right. If I was Ohio State fan, I'd be elated that I got Baylor.
Absolutely.
Got to dodge Baylor.
Correct. Now look, the Minnesota thing is irrelevant to me. It is going to go away. I don't believe that PJ Fleck has enough talent for them to win all the game. And they had a great win against Penn State. Miami a few years ago was 9-0, and they lost their last 3. So that could we could be looking at Minnesota in a month, and they had a very good 9-3 season, and they're in the top 20, which is kind of a good year for Minnesota for sure. But it could happen with Baylor, and we could have and it probably would be unfair. In fact, I would even say that if Baylor is undefeated, see, there's the difference. Like Minnesota, they're 9-0, put them wherever you want, because I think we all feel like they're not going to win them all, and they might. Baylor could win theirs. I mean, Baylor's 9-0. They've had some close calls. Right. They've got Oklahoma left. And then I believe the Big 12 is back to doing a championship game, so they're going to have to beat Oklahoma twice. So that's probably not going to happen.
If you do that, then great.
An undefeated Baylor, I would take over a one-loss, non-conference winner, in this case, Alabama. Yeah. But we also get too much into, they didn't even win their division. Well, come on, let's be fair here. It just happened to be in the division with the number 1 team.
Right.
They didn't win their conference. We can leave it at that. I would suggest that any other team that's making an argument, if their schedule had included LSU, they wouldn't have won their division either. And so that is the great... convoluted part of this. It's hard to rectify schedule strength with record.
It'll be fun for the next 5 weeks to complain and grip over it.
We didn't talk about it at all today. Hopefully by tomorrow it'll happen. And I know you guys, you football fans out there, just can't wait for this to come out of my mouth. But those winter meetings are going on now for baseball.
The GM meetings, yeah. And there's some big names. Like
somebody's going to get traded. We are going to have a baseball bombshell dropped on us this week.
There's some big names that
I don't know what day it'll be, but
whether it's Mookie Betts, whether it's Francisco Lindor, whether it's Chris Bryant, there's big names to be had for the right asking price.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Says thank you, gents, for all your great insight.
Oh, well. Which I don't know if it's great, but it is.
I don't know if it's great, but
it is insight.
And that's,
yeah. Is that it?
I think so. Googans, look, tomorrow's hump day. You know what that means.
We're going to hump?
We're going to hump around like Bobby Brown. Ain't nobody humping around.
I don't know what that means, but
I don't either.
I'll take your word for it.
But we'll catch up with Get Smart John tomorrow.
Oh, we'll knock him out of the park.
Day.
Yeah.
So we'll do that and all our hump day staples. We're still desperately. There must be a national shortage. We're still desperately.
I need you to confirm the Jalen Ramsey stat before tomorrow.
Ping pong.
Because that stat didn't get near enough run on this show as the most. The former Jaguar who hates you, Jaguar fan, more than any other former Jaguar, Jalen Ramsey. There was a stat going around on social media.
Yeah, I think it was posted like a Reddit.
Disastrous. Well, I then saw it again, either reposted off of that Reddit, but.
It
might be worth going maybe through a little research.
It's going around.
Because if we can verify that, it's time to bombard the airwaves with the Jalen is not doing much card. I like
By the way, I mean, we pointed this out. I mean, the Rams, they lost that game to Pittsburgh, and, it's looking like at least the first half of that draft pick package they got for Jalen Ramsey is going to look real nice.
Yeah. Well,
look real nice.
Hey, Rams, go 6-10. We'll take that 12th pick.
Keep stacking L's, guys. Proud of you. Love you, Googans. See you tomorrow.